everyone, and welcome to another tutorial from Colour with Claire. Today I'm going to be showing you how to create this dotty look in your colouring books. Now I'm going to be using Ivy and the Inky Butterfly by Johanna Basford for my example, but you can use obviously whatever colouring book, whatever colouring design you like. So this is basically Pointillism, which is the art of filling a space with dots, and when you get really close to it you can see the dots individually, but when you're really far away from it, it might look more block coloured and more solid. So I was a bit dubious about making this video, to be honest, because it really is just dots. There's no particular skill to it or anything, and I thought people might think it's a bit, a bit simple for me to make a video out of it, but when I put this finished page on my Facebook and my Instagram, I had loads of comments from people asking, please do a tutorial, want to see how you do this, etc, etc, and that's all I care about. If you want it, I'll do it. So this is the Pointillism tutorial. Now what I'm going to be using is the the Staedtler Broadliners. Now you might not have heard of Broadliners, and I've got all of my Staedtler stuff in this huge cumbersome pencil case here, but Broadliners are in between the Fineliners and the colour felt tip pens that Staedtler do. Now you've probably not heard of them because they're not really marketed for colouring purposes, they're more of a writing pen, so for journaling and things like that. But they only come in 20 colours, so you've got a very limited palette, but they do have that thicker nib that's just not as delicate and as fine as the Fineliners. So here they are. The Broadliners look like this. They've got these little glossy sort of stripes all the way down, and the entire barrel and lid is coloured in the same colour as the ink. So for example, with the Fineliners, they have a silver barrel, and the lid, you can see, is the colour of the ink. And with the Tri-Plus colour pens, they all have dark blue lids, and the barrel is the colour of the ink. So you can tell them apart because they're entirely coloured in that ink colour. Now, I have got a spare copy of the book just here, as you can see. So I can zoom in and show you exactly how to do this close up. Now let me just pick out my colours first because I've not got a lot of room on the desk. So let's go for these diamonds and get our pink out. We'll also get the red and the green for these circling flowers. So I think I'll use this green and the red. There's just a few for now. And I'll move this up so that you can see the actual one that we're doing. Okay, hopefully that's all on screen. Books are sort of sliding around and not staying where they should be. Let me just get my paperweight, that might help. No? Fair enough. Okay, let's just see how we go. So, I've got here the pink that I used on the diamonds. So, just try and pull this into shot. On the diamond here, you can see that I haven't actually coloured the entire thing. I haven't done that on any of this actually. Each little section of this illustration has lots of white space left in it. So each facet of the diamond, each flower, each leaf, each part of the crown, we've all got white left in. And that's because with Pointillism, when you're colouring, usually with your coloured pencils and your block colouring, you might start off with a really, really dark colour at the edge, and then you'd lift your pressure up and slowly fade it out into white to give that sort of gradient, that shine look. And what you do with Pointillism is you have to put the dots really, really close together, very densely, in the areas that you want to look dark or shaded. And in the areas where you want it to graduate out, you make sure that there's more space between each dot and there's less of them. That might be easier if I just show you. So on this diamond here, I'm going to make sure that all of the left-hand side of the facets are the darkest area. So we're going to need a cluster of very tight dots like that. And then as we move out into the white, into the right hand side of the facet, we just do a few little ones like that. And that is how you do it. So keep to the edge of the facet, making sure all of your dots are very dense and close together in those areas of shade, and then just a few as you go out into the rest of the facet. So I'll just do one of these diamonds so you can see. So what I'm doing here is I'm making sure that the very point of this facet is quite dense, and then I'm just putting a few little ones here and there as we move out. So pointillism can be as easy as just dotting and filling up the space without any of this kind of technique. But it does make it look a little bit more effective if you use that density of dots to create that shadow. So again, sticking to the left side of the facet and gradually coming out into barely any dots at all. Just like that. And it's super simple, and it's a very quick way of colouring a page as well. Now I imagine that you're thinking this must take an absolute age, but it really doesn't. It's far quicker than getting your pencils or pens out and solidly colouring it in, because you don't have to make sure that you've got every single instance of white that's on the actual illustration. So it's far quicker. And it's just something different, isn't it, really, instead of your bog standard colouring. So just as long as you remember the golden rule of all the areas that you want dark and in shadow and that you would usually have as your darkest bit, they stay very close and clumped together. But each individual dot should not touch each other. So try to keep them, you know, a little tiny hair's breadth apart from each other, just to keep that individuality of the dots. So I found that the Staedtler Fineliners were just too fine for this, and the dots just weren't coming out completely round shaped, if that makes sense. The nibs were just way too fine and just didn't do what I wanted them to do. So these Broadliners are absolutely perfect, because the nib, as you can hopefully see, is really quite thick. I'm not sure how many mils, it doesn't say on here, but I think the Fineliners are 0.3, and I'm guessing this is at least 0.5 to 8 at least. So you are getting a much thicker dot on there. Now you can use whatever you want, obviously, to colour these. I'm not pushing Staedtler or anything, it's just that these seem to be the best dotty pens that I've come across. So we've done our diamond here, and as you can see, these areas on the left hand side of each facet are just much darker, much deeper, and it does give that slight three-dimensional tone to it. And you can always go back in and add more dots here and there if you're not happy. Now let's do one of these flowers that's on the outside of the ring. Now what I did here was exactly the same technique, and usually when I'm colouring flowers I go from dark in the centre to lighter graduation up to the edge of the petal, and that's exactly what I'm going to do with the dots. So again, right in the centre here, lots of dense dots all crowded together, and as we move up to the edge of the petals, just a few just tickling out. Let's zoom in a little bit so you can see that a bit better. And let's do the other petals as well. So very dense and close together, and then very sprinkled and far apart toward the edge of the petal. So that's pretty much it. Now, as I said, if you want to make it look even more dense here, you can. Dense is a word that I'm using a lot, I realise, but it's really the only word I can think of to describe how different each part should be. So here again with the leaf, lots of thick colour in the centre and just a few tiny little dots at the end of the leaf. Just like that. So you can see it's super effective. As we zoom out, they look pretty much coloured. I mean, obviously you can still see the dots because we're not quite that far away, but as you zoom in, then you see all of the tiny weeny individual little dots that we've done. And that's exactly what I did with this page. So exactly the same technique with the purple and the green for the butterfly. I used a gold gel pen to go around the edge of the butterfly just to make it stand out a little bit, but the rest of it is all pen, all dots, all broadliners. And I've just realised for the very first time that I've missed out all of these little pearl shapes that have gone all the way around the ring, but hey, it's fine. So as you can see here, these little sort of gem shapes in the middle, they've got, again, I've sort of stuck to the left hand side of everything. They've got the darker part here fading up, and we've got the crowns, which are the same. In this blue bit that goes around the crowns, I've just literally filled it with dots, so I haven't done any sort of gradation or anything like that. And another bit that I've missed, now I'm looking at it close up, is this little bit here. So yeah, not quite as finished as I thought it was, but hey. So I really hope you've enjoyed looking at this tutorial and that you've got something out of it and that you're going to give it a go yourself. If there's anything you want to ask me, feel free to do so in the comments. If you want to show me your work that you've completed after this tutorial, please do. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anywhere. So please do tag me in your works of art. And again, hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll see you soon on Colour with Claire.